Good evening. Good evening.
We're live. So today we will be discussing distressed properties, foreclosures, and REOs. My name is Pete France. I've been in real estate since 1999. I actually have done real estate residential sales since 2004. So I do have a little bit of experience, and I'm honored to help and work with someone um, in the field of foreclosures, distressed properties, and REOs.
Hey
So,
guys,
Hey.
who's next?
Alicia Thomas, EXP. I have been in the business 5 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, not this year. Well, actually, this month, August is be 5 years. I am licensed in 3 states: Maryland, South Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Um, I do enjoy helping all of my clients, but more importantly, making sure that we end the transaction with honesty and integrity.
I'm Marcia Cephas. I have been in real estate since 2016. I was part-time. I became full-time in 2019. So I deal with all types of buyers and sellers. I get joy out of helping buyers, but I do help sellers. My price ranges, my very first listing was like $85,000, and I've listed a house for $975,000. So I help everybody.
It's a great range.
Mhm.
So I will not be hosting.
Who
We
believes
will-
that?
we
Call
will
us. Call us
all
in.
be hosting together. If you have any questions, any concerns, things that you would like to address, you could actually reach us out on line. I'll put the phone numbers up, but you can actually also, if you would like, you can leave a chat. I'm going to open the chat. So let's see. All right, so that's that. All right, you guys. Marcia, you want to
Yes.
start?
Yeah, I do want to start. So REOs, what is it? Because the name is kind of confusing, real estate owned, but it's not real estate owned, quote unquote. It is bank owned. It is a foreclosed home that the bank is now allowing specific realtors, because all realtors don't get to sell or list REOs. It's a foreclosed home that the bank has allowed certain realtors to list for sale. It's not a bad property to actually make an offer on. At least some of the ones that I've had experience with, they weren't, in bad condition and all of that. But when it comes to negotiating some contingencies, it's a little different because you are negotiating with a bank asset manager. So although there's a realtor in place, that realtor is kind of not making the decision per se. The asset manager at the bank is making the decision about, what you get, what you don't get, if they accept a lower price or whatever the case may be. Often I've actually seen the real estate agents kind of take care of the repair list with the licensed contractor and just get reimbursed, because the banks really don't want to get into the business of fixing the house and doing all those kind of things. They just want to sell it to get it off their books as a defaulted loan, basically. So you guys want to add anything about that?
Let's talk about timelines. What's the timelines when you are negotiating?
Well, actually, now the ones I've done have been at the traditional 30 days because it's not a short sale, where a short sale, can take a bit of time.
So I'm gonna lead next with short sales. So since that was a good segue into short sales. So I actually do a lot of short sales. I've done them in the past and had a short sale company. So short sales are, the definition for a short sale is when it is when a bank takes a short. That means you owe 100,000, but they might take 60,000, and they'll forgive the difference as long as it's your primary residence. And sometimes they work out arrangements if it's your investment property or secondary residence. So definitely, it's a definite way to keep yourself at least out of the foreclosure state, And even though it impacts your credit a little bit, it does not impact it as hard as a foreclosure. And you can, I think, foreclosures is 3 years,
Mhm.
and
Okay,
short
all
sales
right.
is 2. So you're able to bounce back and purchase again. It just depends on the lender, because now some lenders, if you have a certain credit score and you were in a short sale or foreclosure, there are some exceptions, but that's definitely rare. But the general idea is 3 years, if you foreclose on a property before you're able to purchase again. Short sales are definitely good, but then if you're purchasing a short sale, you have to keep in mind that the seller is not all the time prepared to do any work. Um, a lot of times they don't want to do any work. It's an as is sale, so that makes it a little harder for people with grants, or that people that are first time home buyers. I normally don't take first time home buyers to a short sale because it's so emotional. A short sale can take anywhere from 45 to 6 months, 45 days to 6 months. On average, you can get them done in 2 to 3 months. I just did one in 4 weeks, but it just depends on who you're working with, and if the bank has something set up that it makes it really cohesive for you guys to work together. So that's very important with short sales. Find out who the bank is, and the process varies from property to property. But if you have a good asset manager, definitely it'll move smoothly. I wouldn't run from them if you want a deal.
So then the next thing, if you can't get your short sale,
Approved.
well, yeah.
I've never not had one approved.
Mhm.
I've had a
Can we
challenge.
talk about that too?
Okay.
I'm glad you talked about that, because people don't understand you have to get permission from the bank.
Yeah, the bank
Mhm.
has to approve you
That's
to
right.
buy the property at that price.
Mhm.
The listing agent is the professional in listing the property at a certain price.
Mhm.
So the listing agent really should take the amount that the debtor owes, and they come up with a calculation on what the house should be listed at based on condition, based on market value, and they combine all of those resources, and then they put the house on the market. Now, the bank could come back and say, no, you don't have it priced properly.
Mhm.
I've not had that happen to me, but I've heard it has happened to many. And when they come back, you just make an adjustment. Now, what happens is if it goes up and you have a contract, that could be a problem because you could lose your contract. But other than that, there's no real challenge with having a short sale other than time,
Mhm.
work. You need a lawyer on your staff. If your agents are no longer able to manage, they can manage a short. I'm not even gonna say that. I'm gonna say agents. The lawyers are supposed to process the short sales with their staff. That's all I can say about that. Because the laws have changed, and we as agents used to process the short sales, and you can have admins processing, but you must have an attorney sign off on everything.
So then, what about? I've seen listings where it'll say bank approved short sale, right? Which means that I don't know if it was the attorney or agent who went first to the bank and got the number approved. Like who would
So
have done that?
sometimes, I mean, I've done that as well. I mean, sometimes you're like, okay, you had a short sale, you waited for 4 or 5 months, and then it fell through. They then finally approved it on the 5th, going into the 6th month. So when then they have a number. So when you get that number, you now we're on the ball. We want to list the property at that number because that's the number that people can buy the house at, and the bank will accept it because the bank already approved that number. So that is actually when you see bank approved short sale. Now they do have to approve your deposit, your lending, supposedly. I mean, there's some other criteria, but for the most part, if you're qualified to buy that house, you can get that house at that price because they already gave us the number. That's how that works.
And again, talk about the negotiation is with the bank. You're not. The
Right.
agent is
The
kind of our
agent is not the responsible party. So when you get upset, like, oh, they didn't take my offer, or they didn't do, everything must run through the asset manager at the bank. Whoever's in charge of that file, we have to run everything through them. We don't make any decisions as far as the short sale and how it's accepted.
And that's how delays come into play, because if the asset manager is not on it, you're sending things and they're taking however much time they take.
And it depends on their process. Like I said, if an asset manager has a processor and the processor, because sometimes the file can get approved at the bank and then the bank has investors. The investors so there are banks that have investors that it has to go to the board. They can't even approve it. The underwriter is not able to approve it until the board sees these files to make sure they're not taking losses, or the losses that they're taking are within the realm of what they've agreed in their bylaws. So there are certain strategic formulas to what they can and cannot accept. And they're not being funny. It's just like if the person, sometimes we could have a house listed at 100,000 and they come back with a price of 30,000. And you're like, what in the world? Because the asset is worth to the bank 30,000, and they'll say the agent gets this, you cannot pay the seller anything, you got to pay this, and the other. They will specifically tell you what is allowed to be paid at their bottom line, and then it'll tell you how they are going to disperse those funds, and then the transaction is approved. If any deviation from that approval letter, you will not get the title company will own the property, because the title company is not going to get paid. I mean, they're going to, withdraw the sale. So it's not approved at that point if you deviate from the approval in any way, because it's actually authorized and signed off by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, if you didn't know.
So can we take a time to acknowledge the people who are viewing, especially let's do a commercial. At least you got some people in there. I'm getting ready to say hi to all of you, because I want you to come back. Myra, B&L members, Anna, Sweet Cakes Johnson, Simply Meeks, Ma Roberts, her Escovita, China Dog, AMG Cooler, Brown Sugar.
Hey everybody, thank you for
We
tuning in.
appreciate
Like
you.
and share. Like and share.
Right.
We get on here every Tuesday to give information to help people, because this business is very tumultuous in many ways, and a lot of people don't understand what they're doing, even though they get explained, and they're not really clear still. So we go beyond the surface. We answer questions. You can send the questions to Marcia, Alicia, or myself, and literally we'll get back to you and we'll talk to you about it, or we can help you. We're not in the business of taking anybody's clients. We're not in the business of we're helping people. This is our platform to help other people do what we love, and that's pretty much that.
So Alicia, you're going to talk about foreclosures.
Yeah. So what is a foreclosure? Generally, foreclosures is when the mortgage holder has essentially missed payments. Now, the law says that the bank or the lien holder can issue what we call a notice of intent to foreclose after the first payment is missed. Generally, that doesn't always happen. Some years back, when the mortgage industry was at the height of the foreclosures and all, I knew people that was actually in their house almost a year and a half before the foreclosure actually took place. So sometimes it will depend on the lien holder and who actually holds the note as to how fast it can move. However, the first step is the bank issuing what we call the notice of intent to foreclose. And again, that can be done after the first payment is missed. After the notice of intent is issued, they will ultimately file that notice in court, which is 45 days after the foreclosure is filed. Once it's filed in court, they can have up to 90 days or up to 120 for missed payments. And again, generally, all of that goes back to individuals that has not paid their mortgage. So now we say, well, how does it get that far? What are steps that can happen before foreclosure? So as Pete just talked about, trying to do a short sale. All properties do not qualify for a short sale. Also, in some cases, In some cases, the mortgagee will also try to do what we call a modification, meaning, let's say you have, we just got over COVID or still at the tail end or however you want to see it. A lot of individuals lost income, and they didn't just lose a little bit of income. Some households lost all income, some households lost some income. So in that case, before they even get to the short sale process or before you get to foreclosure, individuals can work with the lien holders or their mortgage companies to try to get a modification in place. That can supersede, but again, it had, just like Pete said, in terms of getting permission from the bank on what will happen. Same thing with modifications. They have to have the bank to approve the modification, where they'll now go back in, look at your income, and say, hey, your income went from hypothetically $100,000 a year. Now you're down to $60,000 a year. The $60,000 may still make you eligible for the mortgage, but you are struggling because you lost $40,000 in income. So in that case, if the bank chooses or wants to work with you instead of foreclosing, now they may be able to go in, tack those missed payments onto the end of the loan, do a modification in terms of your payment, try to get that payment lowered by, $100, $200, $300 to now bring it into that affordability range.
Another thing I'd like to add,
Mm-hmm.
I was a recipient of, I bought a house in the jumbo loan sector, and when I was trying to do a modification, because back then in 2007 or 8,
Mm-hmm.
Our houses were undervalued, and we paid too much for the home.
Correct.
So during that time, our bank, our second mortgages were actually being canceled
Mm-hmm.
because they were done improperly sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Ours gave us a forgiveness. I believe we owed like 170 or 160 on our second mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
and they reduced it to 85,000. And our
Mm-hmm.
note like literally cut to a quarter of what we were paying.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like definitely helpful. I
Mhm.
mean, having a big loan, your first, I think before we were paying like $200 a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it went all the way down to like $2,600 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a huge savings just from the modification. So if you're in trouble, that's another thing. You can see if you're eligible for a modification.
Mm-hmm.
That will let your payments be reduced.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes they can forgive
Mm-hmm.
some of the, now when they forgive it,
Mm-hmm.
they do write it off,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you'll get a 1099 for that as income.
Correct. I'm glad you say that.
That is not always income.
Correct.
You need a very good tax person
Correct.
to apply that to your taxes the proper way.
Correct. And even with short sales, you can very well get a 1099 on the amount of money that they quote unquote shorted.
If you
I'm sorry, if you do
no,
a
you're
short
fine.
sale, and like Pete explained earlier, you may owe 100, and the bank say, okay, we'll accept 80. Well, at $20,000, you can very well receive a 1099 on it. And as they say, back in 2007, 2008, when it was the height of foreclosures, it was the height of the market crash, there was a lot of 1099s being issued. And I even remember coworkers saying, well, what in the world is this? Why am I getting a 1099 even for credit card debt, this mortgage debt? But every short sale person does not receive a 1099.
No.
So it's not a standard across the board. A lot of times it's circumstantial, and the lender will help determine how it's reported. So just because you do a short sale does not mean you're going to automatically get that 1099 to report on your taxes at the end of the year.
A lot of times with the short sales, like I negotiate already that the person won't have that they won't have an additional payment.
Mm-hmm.
I negotiate they will not have there are different ways that this is tabulated at the end of your short sale.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get tax forms, sometimes. So if you're a negotiator, you need to be very clear that you cannot afford any other payments. You don't want no balloon payment in 5 years. You don't want to owe any money. You want to walk away and you're done with that property. So you have to be very clear with your negotiator. Negotiations, usually I have seen them from $1,500 to $9,000. Right now in the market that we're in, people are making the buyers pay that, not the seller. They are reducing the price enough so you'll be able to incur the short sale fee, which would be, it's included in your deal, but you tack it onto your price. So if you're buying a house for $120 and the short sale negotiator is charging $5,000, it is $125. So just be very aware of that, because it's not a talked about thing, and you don't know until those fees hit you at the settlement table or the HUD-1 when your agent's going over that with you. But it is disclosed now in most cases, not all, but most, what the short sale fee is and who has to pay it, because we have to disclose everything. So if it's not disclosed, then you have another issue there.
Because I believe some of our homeowners who are threatened with foreclosure, can't get the modification, need to know that as long as that deed is in your name, you own the house. So if your last resort is to sell it, which the typically what I found, because I've helped some people, the lawyers will give you payoffs. They until you make it to a foreclosure sale, the lawyers will send a payoff as long as the homeowner is requesting it. So if you get yourself in a situation where you know they're going to foreclose on your house, you suspect you have equity in the house, and you can't come out with whatever to get it out of foreclosure, you should really consider selling the property.
That is very key. A lot of people try to hold on to the last hour. Do not try to do that. I'm not saying that it might not be a way that you could save your house, but if you can save it, get permission to that. So first of all, you don't need permission from the bank to sell your property as long as not foreclosed on. So you can actually list your property. If they say you're pending foreclosure, you get that big packet and you get scared. Oh, we got to move. No, you don't have to move. Call somebody that knows what they're doing, and you can list your property. It is better for you to sell your house, your investment, and make something than lose everything.
And get your credit score smacked.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you sell it, at least you only have late payments.
Now, for those people
get that foreclosure, you've done for what, 3 or 4 years?
3 years.
So
3 years.
We will also add, if you find yourself in that position,
I was going to say,
of course, you can reach out to any of us, and we will assist you with the process, not only the process to sell, if that's what you choose to do, but also the process of trying to find you some resources. So there are a lot of community resources depending on where you live, and of course, there may be too many to mention. So again, just reach out to us for resources. However, the state of Maryland Department of Labor has a whole page dedicated to the foreclosure process. So that can be your first step if you find yourself in financial trouble. Pull up Department of Labor and License dllr.state.nb.us. That will be the first line of defense in understanding timelines and understanding an overview of what the foreclosure process looks like. So if you have any other questions, or you find, you may live in Northeast Baltimore versus, the Park Heights area, and you need help and you just completely confused, because one thing I've found in my adult life, that generally when individuals are facing some sort of hardship,
they run.
They run, and I'm gonna say we, because we all do it. We all have run into some sort of hardships along the way.
We all.
So I will say we tend to shut down. We tend to not face the music until sometimes it's too late. And I think it's just the nature. So if you find yourself in that position, or you find yourself just saying, you know what, I really need some help, please reach out to any of us. We would hate to see you lose your home where there's resources available. And as we all stated from the beginning, this is not about sales to us. This is about education. So we are committed to helping and assisting where we can. So again, please feel free to reach out. We're all here to assist.
And if you get any papers in the mail, please open them. Please read them. Do not discard them, because you never know what's written in them.
Right.
And you can find out. Everybody can be shocked.
So for those people that have waited a little too long and that house went to auction, and it's sold.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure it's sold for real, because
Mhm.
sometimes it does not sell.
Mhm.
The bank, your bank, normally buys it back
Correct.
from you at the foreclosure sale.
Correct.
They will do whatever they have to do to get that property back because they have a note on that property.
Mhm.
So what obviously happens, you're still in the property and you don't own it anymore.
Mhm.
There's something called cash for keys.
Mhm.
So they will help you move. So if nobody told you yet, cash for keys, it'll help you get a rental. But understand this. Let me be clear about rentals right now. Very clear. No one wants, everyone calls and say, can I get a private landlord? Can I get a private landlord? Everybody's private now. And nobody is working with people with credit scores under 600 in a sense. Some of them want 650 or 700 for a rental. Sometimes you need a better credit score for a rental right now. In most cases, other than apartment communities, sometimes they're lowering their standards because no one is getting private single homes like they used to. Private landlords are tired of not being able to collect rent. And it is like they didn't have a meeting or something. Because they all are doing the same thing. Application fees are higher.
Yeah.
They are running background checks and criminal on everybody. They're not if you don't have good credit, so before
has to be better than buying.
It has to be better than buying.
I just told somebody that earlier, and she was looking like, "What? So you're a realtor and you can't? No, that's not.
We're not magicians.
We're not magicians.
We're not magicians anymore.
This is what's
happened to our market.
Correct. Now explain a little bit. I'm sorry about the redemption period. So after it goes to foreclosure, after it goes to auction,
there is a redemption period that you can actually come and pay in full with fees that amount. So if you are built like that, because I don't know many people, if you had a cousin or a rich uncle or somebody hit the lotto and y'all can then redeem the house, I would let it go. Because here's the thing, why stress out all that time? You couldn't pay it as it was going. Start over, rebuild. You know, go to an apartment complex where the rent is half. Take that time to, I always say, whenever you want to propel forward, if you're shifting lanes, what do? You drop back. So most of the time, when you want to excel forward, you got to take 2 steps back, or when we change the lanes, we slow down a little bit and get over. And then we normally proceed further than we were. So the next house can be bigger, better. Just know that you learned your lessons in your number one distressed house. You don't want to overspend, buy the big car. Excuse me. I was ready to say it. You don't want to buy the big car and have those big car payments, or maybe you want to have 1 car payment instead of 2 with your wife or husband. Instead of y'all carrying 2 notes and y'all want luxury vehicles, carry 1 and have 1 paid off car. You got to refigure your budget, because if it didn't work the first time, you got to be a little smarter the second time.
And that makes a good point, though. I mean, why save something you clearly can't keep?
Right. Unless he said like something happened, you were sick, you was out of work for a while. It all happens. Like it happens.
No one is absent to hard times.
Correct.
Not anyone.
I love that.
No one is absent to hard times.
Sick, you was out of work. You bills just became overwhelming. You're going through a divorce. Stuff happens.
There's reasons.
There's a lot of reasons sometimes. But if you find yourself, you say, you know what, I got back up on my feet. That was a trial. I knew I was waiting on this settlement, or I just had to get back to work to get caught up. I was able to get this, and I know I can sustain after paying the home off in full and kind of working through that by all means. However,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, however, if you just realize you can't pay it, we're not advocating to say, oh, go do a short sale, oh, go foreclosure. Like, we're not advocating that, but with the understanding there's rules and there's things happen when you miss payments. And if you just find yourself in those positions and you get that packet, like Marcia said, reach out, find a community resource, find some sort of resource that can help. And again, if you are unsure on those community resources, we are here to help you find those resources in the community, because they do exist. They do exist to try to walk you through, but make sure that you're handling it correctly. Even with modifications, there's certain wording that you need to also, when you talk to the bank, fill out the forms and stuff, there's certain wording that has to go in that modification form. So if you don't fill those forms out correctly, you run the risk of not being eligible for modification. And modifications, even in the mid 2000s, when foreclosures and short sales were up, modifications was some of the hardest things to get from the bank perspective.
So
All right.
I want to tell a story though about the whole missing payment foreclosure and all that good stuff. So in 2020 or 2021, it was clearly during COVID. I had the buyer. A seller had taken advantage of this COVID relief. Don't pay your mortgage. It was like 6 months of it. Well, in October of whatever that year was, that's when you had to pick back up and make those payments. Well, she didn't plan to. So her listing agent is trying to sell this house, and I had a buyer who was actually interested in purchasing this home. The odd part about it is my buyer wanted the home, so it worked for her, but she pretty much paid the 8, you still had to pay them 6 and 8 months that you got relief. You had to pay them back.
Correct. When you sell.
Exactly. My buyer ended up buying the house before this young lady lost it in a foreclosure because she had taken advantage of the 8 months of not making a payment. And so my buyer kept saying, why am I paying the 8 months that she didn't pay, but it was what it was,
Like, listen, I hear this all the time, and or you can have something wrong with the property. First of all, let's be clear. You're not buying a perfect property. No property is perfect, even the ones that get built from the ground up. They're not perfect. They all have something wrong with them. The other thing that we need to be very cognizant of is when we do go through a traumatic situation or something, whatever, if you're the buyer, if you're the seller, if you're even the agent, because agents go through traumatic situations. But if you go through those things, be realistic. If you didn't pay for 3 months, the 3 months didn't go away. Right. You might as well just add it to the back or figure it out. Sometimes they can forgive things, but that's very rare because these are government programs that cannot take losses. So it is imperative that you understand that just because you getting a deal on the house is $30,000 less. That's why they selling it distressed. Don't try to get the world because it's not coming. Exactly. Nothing is coming for free, and it's not easy. You might get a deal here and there, but deals are pretty much low. You're gonna get one, but you ain't gonna have a windfall like it was before. And that's realistic because the bank is not gonna keep taking losses. Banks have gotten to the point they're renting properties. Banks are renting. Banks are giving secondary loans. Banks are doing different creative financing. Banks there are now lease to purchase, which used to be illegal, lease to purchase contracts, which you can do with companies. Please don't do it with mom and pop shops, y'all. No, please. Please don't do it. We don't know. Use the company that's reputable. That has read the Google. Everybody got Google. Read the remarks and results and what people experience. The other thing, I want to say this. I experienced something today, and it's not off topic because I was selling a foreclosure today. My client wants to buy this REO property. Well, when we get to the property, my client asked me why I knock on the door. Well, I always knock in case there's a squatter, somebody's in the property, I don't know, whatever the case. I knocked on the door, and then I go to reach in my bag to get my thing to get in the house, my resource to digitally get in the house, and the door opens. And the man's like, "What are you doing? You come into my house." And I said, "What are you talking about? This house is legally listed. It is a HUD property. You don't belong here." So then, because I understand the processes. So you can't tell me a whole way. He showed me his lease. I said, "Your lease is actually invalid. It's not with the owner of the property." I gave some information on what he could do. And he's like, "I gave this man 3,000 bands. I got you." That's what's happening right now. So stop going to Craigslist with those unrealistic property dreams. Because if it's a dream, it's probably for real, not real. If you're like, "Oh my God, that house for $1,500? No, they normally rent for $2,750,
Mhm.
and then a property market value of $340. How are you gonna pay $1,500? That don't even make sense.
Right.
So with that not making sense, you as a consumer, as a renter, as a tenant, need to do your due diligence or get an agent because you don't understand it. Because if you don't understand it, there's a reason that you don't understand it. You're not an expert in that field. You might sell cars and be an expert. I might not know that. I'm not a drywall person. I need to pay someone for their expertise. So you might, and the good part about real estate, 9 times out of 10, buyers and tenants don't have to pay much to do a transaction, if at all. So that's something you could take up with your agent, whoever they're going to be, would be, or could be. That's another thing. So today was really, it was an experience.
How did it end? How did he?
I took a picture.
I'm sure he was upset, but
he couldn't be upset with me. He said, "You're the second, third person to come through."
So he understood.
So with his lease, I turned it over to the listing agent. I mean, I didn't touch his stuff. I gave a copy of the lease, his information, turned it over, and HUD immediately pulled it off the market because now they got to go through another process,
right, to get him
and or place him.
Correct.
I even told him if my client had purchased the property, but by the time I called and I'm not going to allow certain things to go down. So as soon as I go on the property and there's something that's not right, I'm licensed. I do not play with that. I called the listing agent so that they could call HUD. If I couldn't get the listing agent, I would have probably called the REO asset manager.
Correct.
So because there's a person in the property that doesn't belong in the property, it's shady as I don't know what, the whole situation. No number. He can't get in touch with the person. The property got some issues. It had issues the day he moved in and was promised, you got a one lock this that you got the key and you don't have no other keys. That is something wrong with that.
So listen, I got a piece of advice for you all. If you find yourself, if you find yourself dealing with a Craigslist landlord, whoever you find these people, before you do anything, just say to them, whether you follow through or not, I'm going to have my realtor reach out to you. Trust me, if you say that, they'll probably never call you back.
It'll cut the foolishness out.
Yeah, they will never call you back. But you should find a realtor too and have your realtor.
So if you don't know what's going on right now in our marketplace, a lot of people are breaking in properties that are distressed. Because they're not owned by people and people don't visit them they visit them usually supposedly weekly. But if they don't, let's just say they're doing monthly. You got 3 weeks that these people are renting this property out. They break in, change the locks, and rent the property. So be very careful that you understand that name on that property is lining up either with a property management company. Ask that who is the owner of the property. Do your due diligence. Don't just, everybody's not a fraud either, but the whole thing you have to understand is we're living in a time that we are dealing with unpresidential.
Unprecedented.
Oh yeah, it's unprecedented. We're dealing with circumstances that are not normal and things that probably some people have never faced before. So when we get, AI is a big monster right now. There are a lot of people doing a lot of different things. I'm not even going to go into that, but you have to protect your identity and who you are at every cost.
So if you have any questions, we're talking about foreclosures, REOs, which are bank-owned properties, and short sales. So if you have any questions pertaining to those things, please let us know. We'll be here for probably another 5 minutes. Yeah, another 5-7 minutes. So just let us know. One topic that I would love for us to really dive into is that reverse mortgage at some point.
Yes.
I got a call on that this week.
It appears harmful once the person passes away. I've not been called about a reverse mortgage where the person has passed away, where what was due on the property was astronomical. I mean, it almost didn't even make sense. I really, I would love to talk about reverse mortgages.
So as we're coming to a close,
Oh, yeah, we
but
are.
definitely Alicia, myself, and Marcia can take calls after this. I'm putting the numbers out right now. Um, so if you need our phone numbers, they are posted. We all work in tandem, but we don't work together.
But we work for the same broker.
But we work for the same brokerage. Yeah, I put that up there. We all do work for eXp Realty, which is their first virtual company in the world. And we're the fastest growing company in the world. And if you think you want a career in real estate, we are all mentors and we can actually help you start a career in real estate. So it is important that you know that real estate is a definite great career, but as I've been in it since 2004 full time, it is not that we just go open a door and get a check. And once we get the check, it's so many people that we have to split the check with. Even though you see a big check, you guys think that that whole entire check comes to us. Well, first look at IRS. Second, look at the brokerage. Then we might get something, and then there are expenses to do what we do. It is very expensive, so don't take it lightly to do real estate. You will put out something before you make something, and it'll be a whole lot of something.
A whole lot of something.
But with that being said, it's attainable. If you have dreams, it's doable, and we're here to help you if you want to do that. So you have our numbers again. If you're interested in real estate, we're at AXP, and there are some major ways that you can pay at our company. Absolutely incredible investment for your life and retirement and other things. So definitely reach out about that because we have something so special called revenue share. And we'll go into it one day. I'm going to actually next week, if not the next week, we're going to actually go over our company, our entire company, how the structure is for our company. A lot of people put these on YouTube. They do it all fast and they see, we explain EXP in 12 minutes. Well, you need a little bit more time to explain it and understand it. We probably will take it in sections and we will all take a part. But so that you can understand. So if you know anybody, if your kids are interested in real estate or you're retiring soon and you're interested in real estate, this is the time that we are actually going to go through it next week. That is going to be episode 7. Episode 7, so that you'll be off and running for episode 8. So episode 7, we are actually going over EXP, our company, how to become an agent, the steps that it takes, some of the fees it might cost. So if you're interested in real estate, that is our show for next week. So with that being said, I thank you for tuning in. Please like and share us. If you're not on our broadcast at the moment, definitely log in and still like and share us. And then comment on the page. We still watch it and look into it after the podcast. So do that, and we look forward to talking to you again. And know this, we stream almost on every platform. So we're not just one of these, we're on one or one company we're on every platform so that you guys can tune into us easily.
Yes.
All right. Well, have an amazing day.
Thank you all.